Hey guys, welcome back to Hands On channel. Today we're checking out this brush hog. I mentioned it a couple of videos ago, and you can see here there's some places where there's some rust and stuff like that. So we're going to be fixing this brush hog up. Also, it has one of these like skid things right here that goes along the bottom edge. Well, you'll notice it's rolled under right up to here. So I'm going to have a hard time straightening that out. It's probably going to take a sledgehammer and some maybe some heat and stuff like that. But I thought I'd show you guys just real quickly how we're doing this thing. Basically, you're going to need some hammers, some gloves. I'm using MAP gas because it gets hotter quicker. So we're going to be going around and just trying to straighten it out the best we can and looking for places where we need to do welding. This corner here, it's actually already been re-welded at one time. You can see that. But down here at the bottom, it's cracked. It's not a big deal, but I can reinforce that and weld it back up. This is probably one of the worst spots here. Right on the back there, it looks like they backed into something like a stump or something like that, and it just bent that whole section right there under. And what I'm working on right now is trying to bend that back out. It doesn't have to look perfect, but what it does need to do is be welded back on there and relatively rigid so that hopefully that won't happen again. It gives the back of the brush hog structure, you know, so I don't really want to lose that. But yeah, it's pretty darn pretzeled up and stuff over here in this area, so I'm sure it'll never look perfect, but all in all, the brush hog seems to be in pretty good shape. It's not rusted through anywhere except for that front place that I showed you. So I've got it up here on my flatbed, and if you have a flatbed truck, you'll soon learn that it's an invaluable tool around the homestead, because it's the perfect workbench for even projects this size. This is a 5-foot brush hog, by the way. So I'm going to set you down here and show you how I'm going about straightening this thing out. Well, I'm having a hard time closing up that hole there, but I may just have to call this good enough, at least on this side, because I can't heat it up enough. If I had a proper torch, like a cutting torch or something like that, I could, you know, oxyacetylene rig, I could easily get it red hot and get the thing to bend. It seemed to help a little, but I'm not so sure if it wasn't just as easy to bend it with the big crescent wrench with it cold. Well, that certainly went easier than the rear section. So I got to continue on, guys. I don't want to bore you with all this. This is basically what I'm doing. Applying heat when I need to and sweat the rest of the time. If you're gonna get that work done, you gotta sweat, boy, sweat. I've basically bent and banged and done everything I can do with the biggest sledgehammer I have, and that's the best I could do. I couldn't close that gap up. If I'd had maybe some other sort of a hydraulic press or something like that I could have fit around this thing, and I tried to think of different ways, like maybe if I stuck it up on the back of the flatbed, and I thought about trying to use the hydraulics on the tractor, the down pressure on the tractor, to try to push down on that. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, it's not really worth it. As long as I remake that connection again and get that hole plugged up, it'll be good to go. So I've gone around here and you can see some of the shiny places where I plan on welding. Not right here. That's just where the wire brush hit. But right down here, there's a crack. I'm going to fix that up. This is a double piece of steel here, so I want to make sure that that's all reinforced. We're going to put some filler metal in here and fill that gap up and weld that up. More importantly than that, we're going to chase this down. That crack has continued right there. We're going to chase this weld out to about right here, and still got to do some work on this side here. It's kind of out of square, out of, you know, it's just not flat anymore. It's been banged into stuff, stumps and whatever. And if you notice this little rail here, get a little more light going. This little rail here, the brush hog is supposed to sit on that and slide across the ground on that when it comes in contact with the ground. So it's pushed up right here underneath. I'm going to have to definitely try to get that rail bent back out and reconnected to this little end right here. And this is probably the worst spot on the whole brush hog. I think we'll get started on this easier side just so I can get warmed up.
Perfect.
All right, I'm trying to straighten out this runner on the ground here, the one that touches the ground. It was tucked up underneath the deck, and I have been able to bend the deck back out to shape somewhat. We're going to see if I can salvage that little piece. If not, I'll cut it off and weld on a piece of angle iron right there. All right, here we are all patched up. You can see that's my angle iron patch on the front corner and some random welds. I fixed that bottom rail, got it a lot better. Had to put a new piece of metal in there in the front there, but that worked out. While it's still bent up, the rear is a lot straighter than it was, and I'm not worried about the blades coming in contact with the metal anymore. As you can see here, I added a couple of chain hooks just to make it a little easier to lift up. So if I guessed properly, last time around I used the actual gearbox to lift by, and it was leaning back a little bit because of the tail wheel. So I'm hoping that where I placed them here, right behind the gearbox, will be the perfect place, the perfect balance point. So let's find out. All right, that worked out pretty well. Next up, we're going to power wash this thing off. I don't know if I have time to do it today. We're going to power wash it off and then we're going to paint it up. All right, looking pretty good so far.